So I'm going to talk about an incredibly misleading and manipulative comic called Roostertails. It's a New Zealand-based comic, which is chock full of SJW propaganda. It provides a clear view into the SJW psyche. The part of it that I really hate is that it is full of gross conceptions about what it means to be transgender. And I can imagine that many young transgender people may be led into SJW cult through propaganda like this. It's been going from 2010 on, so there's plenty of material to talk about. The comic is written by someone named Sam, who claims to be a trans man. And I say claims to be because he says a lot of things that trans men don't normally say. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Now, I'm actually female-to-male transgender myself, and that's part of the reason I'm so mad about this. I don't really like to talk about the fact that I'm transgender, but I thought that it might help explain where I'm coming from and why my voice sounds the way it does. I hate my voice, but as of now, there's nothing I can do about it. Anyway, this webcomic is clearly directed at young trans boys and men as an attempt to suck them into the SJW movement. So I'm going to show a lot of comics from this website, but there's plenty where this came from under the same lines. I'll link this cancer in the description. So in the first comic strip I'm reading, Sam says, "So I got my first endocrinologist appointment today. I feel anxious. I want to explain that going on T is important for me this time. It's not because it will make me feel like a man. I'm already a man. I just hope it will make the surface reflect the rest of me. And I want to go on T because it will make my life easier. Not because I'm inflicted with a hideous disorder that needs to be fixed, but because it's hard to be ambiguous in a world that demands clarity. And I can fight that from a stronger position if I'm seen as more me. But how much of that does the doctor really want to hear?" Okay, so I have a lot to say about this. I've been undergoing a long process to go on testosterone for 10 months now, and I'll hopefully get on it in a couple of weeks. But it just keeps getting delayed, so I'm not really sure. And you know why I'm going through all this just to get on hormones? Because I need them to feel more masculine. Because I do have a hideous condition that needs fixing. It's called gender dysphoria. The fact that this person is implying that he would be perfectly comfortable with his body without testosterone, but he still wants to go on testosterone. Because society isn't going to see him as a man. If he does it, he might not be transgender. And if you look at his later comics, he actually did go on testosterone. So I've been diagnosed with gender dysphoria and gone through all the paperwork and the whole process, and I'm still not on hormones. But apparently in New Zealand, you can go on testosterone without having any real gender dysphoria. And he's bragging about all this. Oh my god. And it gets even worse. This potential transgender is in a romantic relationship with a definite transgender. The transgender's name is Joe. And she claims to be a genderqueer, trans-masculine femboy, and says she'll wear more dresses after going on testosterone. Isn't that exactly what Miley Stewart said in one of her videos? And to make it even worse, she was allowed to go on testosterone too, apparently to make herself less girly, which makes no sense, as testosterone is a male hormone. These doctors should really be fired. Going on hormones is a huge decision, and only real transgender people who experience real gender dysphoria should be allowed to take them. These people just wear gender as a fashion statement and don't care about the real damage they are doing to real trans people. So the next strip really provides a great insight into how much SJWs self-censor themselves, because their extreme political correctness essentially doesn't allow them to say anything. So Sam says, when it comes to comics, I can be pretty sexist. So he just admits he's sexist from the get-go. But as you'll see later, he actually thinks that's a good thing. I'm way more likely to pick up a book written by a woman, and I usually enjoy them more. There's something quite powerful about reading something that's literally been framed by a woman. Or maybe there's something subversive about stories that aren't written or framed by white, cisgendered, heterosexual, upper-middle-class, able-bodied men. Since so much is created by and about just this type of person, all this makes my position somewhat complicated as I embark as my transition from female to male. I'm a white, middle-class, able-bodied man, 2/3 there. What does that do to the stories I tell? Am I even allowed to tell women's stories anymore? How about stories about non-white protagonists or differently abled people? Oh my god, I have to stop it. Remember, kids, people who actually can't do things aren't disabled, they're just differently abled. Because that makes total sense. Jesus Christ, these people, I can't do this. I'm done. If I'm the one with the power to frame these stories, then what are the ramifications? How do I avoid othering people? So essentially what Sam is saying, that he can't write stories about people that are different from him? Why? Is it because a bunch of butthurt SJWs are going to come after him? Jesus is a dangerous thing to be in this cult. He has to censor himself to save his life. And now it's good to be sexist, apparently. At least he admits he's sexist instead of saying that you can't be sexist against men. But this comic was made a long time ago, so he's probably been brainwashed into that since then. So this is more recent, and it's another one that makes me question if this guy is really trans or not. Ugh, another article. 10 sexy guys you won't believe are trans. And they're all white, thin, and or muscly. Well, guess what? White people are the majority in New Zealand, so out of only 10 guys, I would expect most of them to be white. Sure, there could be more representation of people who aren't white, But that's not even a huge issue. This is one article. And guess what? Being muscular and thin means you're healthy and therefore attractive. Why is there a problem with that? Do you want to see fat trans men who don't work out? What would be the point of that? And underneath the Tumblr bros, I can't stand are suggesting gym strategies to lose curves and look more manly. That's what trans guys do. In fact, that's what all guys do. We all strive to look better and more masculine. What's wrong with that? Guys don't want to look like girls. I feel yuck enough about my body without these weird trans bro articles. You mean stuff real trans men are interested in, so you're so insecure you don't want to see stuff about other trans guys being muscular? Or you're just not trans, you don't want to look masculine? I can't really tell which one it is. I'll get through the rest of this, sorry. My teeny hands and curvy waist and tummy could be sexy in a dinosaur kind of way. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. So you don't want to look fit and masculine? Sorry, dude, that's your problem. Most trans guys do. Stop being such an authoritarian and telling young trans people reading your comics they can't enjoy articles about trans people looking good. Okay, here's now perhaps one of the most irritating comics I've seen on this site. Let's get through it. Transgender, genderqueer, intersex, two-spirit, fafafiend, trans woman. Okay, only 3 of those are valid. Transgenderism is real, trans women are real, and intersex, which is a physical anomaly, by the way, not a gender, is real. Genderqueer is a made-up Tumblr term. Two-spirit is a Native American term for trans people. And fafafiend comes from a tradition among the indigenous people of Papua New Guinea, where they would designate gay, effeminate men as a third gender. But those people are still not biologically a third gender. They still have male brains. By the way, the indigenous people of Papua New Guinea have some really bizarre customs, but I'm not going to get into that. Let's move on. Third sex, no such thing as a third sex. Trans guy, another legit thing, you got that right. Transvestite, that's not a gender, that's just someone with the cross-dressing fetish. Fakalidi, I looked that up, and that's basically the Tongan equivalent of the fafafiend who I just talked about. Pangender, another Tumblr term. And finally, transsexual, which is a real thing. It means a transgender person who's transitioned, although it's spelt wrong. So only 6 of those things are actually legit, and 2 of them don't even have to do with gender. What a surprise. What do you call the other people who aren't magically gendered? Muggles. So obviously there's a stupid Harry Potter joke there. The thing I really hate about this strip is the telling teenagers that there are all these genders out there when really there are only 2. Even being transgender is not a gender. You transition from one sex to the other. Okay, so this next one was written by a guest artist who you'll see is clearly a transgender. So this isn't Sam speaking here. I knew for maybe 5 years that one day I would like to begin the physical transition. Newsflash, if you're trans, you don't want to someday transition. You want to transition right now. That's what dysphoria is. I talked about it with friends, although often jokingly. Trans guys bet on me when I would start taking testosterone. But I didn't really take all this seriously, and I just kept on living my life. Then you're not trans. If you don't take transitioning seriously, then you have no real need to transition. Over the time, I did more and more drag kinging. Every time I wore a beard and binder, I felt so more comfortable, beautiful, free to be myself. I started feeling uncomfortable being called she and being referred to as a woman. You don't start to feel dysphoria after hearing about transgender people if you're trans. If you're trans, you never feel comfortable being referred to as your birth sex. And more importantly, you feel uncomfortable with your body, which this woman never mentioned. During this time, I used to spend whole nights on YouTube. I was trying to find people that find themselves as non-binary trans people and who want hormone replacement therapy. You can't be non-binary and transgender. Also notice the asterisk. Why is there that annoying asterisk there? But every trans guy I found was such a manly man. There wasn't anybody like me. I started to have big doubts if this path was meant for me. See, this is the reason people think they're non-binary, because they think they're not masculine or feminine as they should be for a trans person. It's funny that these are the same people who say clothing and interests have no gender. Fortunately, one day I stumbled upon Sam's comics in the description of these wonderful 2 non-binary trans people. You mean a transgender and a potential transgender? They've been great as liver and possibility models for me since then. So that's the whole comic, and you can see at the end there, this person got a beard. So she also went on testosterone without any real gender dysphoria. I recant my statement about those doctors being fired. They should be straight up shot. Okay, here's a particularly infuriating recent strip in which Sam tries to claim that the Orlando shooting tragedy happened because racism and oppression. You know, not because a crazy fundamentalist Muslim massacred a bunch of gay people for being gay. Oppression can feel like barbed wire, painful, piercing, wounding. It comes from our systems, institutions, governments, families, and from individuals. And as you can see, some of the wires say things like patriarchy, laughing, and misgendering. Seriously, I thought we were talking about actual oppression here. Building up over time, creating cages, puncturing our skin, infecting us, getting deadlier and deadlier. Okay, enough with the metaphor. On Sunday morning, in a Latinx gay bar in Orlando, Florida, those bars became bullets. And as you can see, the bullets say queerphobia. Okay, why that instead of homophobia? Racism, bigotry, and misogyny. Okay, this is the most flat-out false thing I've ever seen. First of all, I hate that SJW buzzword Latinx. It's such an ugly word, and it's by no means grammatically correct in Spanish. Latino is the correct word to indicate it's a mix of men and women. But of course the SJWs got offended because gender is evil. Second of all, it was not a Latino bar. It just happened to be Latin night there. Stop trying to turn this into something it was not. Omar Martin didn't kill those people because they were Hispanic. He killed them because they were gay. Racism, misogyny? Seriously, you had to throw those in there too? Again, Omar Martin didn't kill those people because they were women. In fact, plenty of them were men. And I noticed, Sam, how you slyly didn't include the fact that Omar Martin was a radical Muslim and his fundamentalist religious upbringing definitely contributed to his homophobia. His own father said that Allah should have killed those people. Why are you defending Islam, Sam? What is so special about it that, unlike Christianity, it can't be criticized? It's rather disgusting, Sam, that you would turn a tragedy as horrible as the Orlando shooting into the pushing of your own agenda and complaining that you're so oppressed. You're despicable, Sam. And here are 3 final strips. And these ones really indicate to me that Sam may not actually be a trans man. First one says, "My gender and sexuality are complex." Well, isn't that convenient, you special snowflake? They shift and turn and morph. They pirouette, they twist, they crump. Not sure what the last word means. They feed and force one another, informing and denying, creating and decaying. New words and old. Okay, you know what, Sam? Your gender cannot change. You yourself have said in your comics that you are a trans man. So why is your gender changing? I thought you were a trans man. Even your sexuality changes, your gender doesn't. Your gender is set in your brain by the time you were a young child. If you were really a trans man, you probably wouldn't be saying that your gender changes all the time. But you know who does say that her gender changes all the time? Milo Stewart. Next one reads, "Living as Sam feels great, feeling like I'm outwardly acknowledging who I am, being served and called he and him. But really, what I most think about is a chance to drag his chair. Think that I was such a mopey, shy girl growing up, but damn it, those costumes would be fabulous." Okay, if you're thinking about transitioning to living as a man, and you immediately think about going back to dressing and acting as a woman, or vice versa, that's a big red flag to me. Dysphoria prevents real trans people from doing those types of things. I don't ever want to wear anything that looks slightly feminine, even though I probably would still pass as male. Even people who aren't transgender usually don't dress and act like the opposite sex. That tells me you're not trans, Sam. In fact, I've given up on trying to give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm calling you woman from here on out, because that's what you've told your readers, and the last comic only further serves to confirm this. She says in this one, "I've been having a recurring dream lately in which I'm a drag queen on RuPaul's Drag Race, and I'm fabulous," which is how I knew it was a dream. I was even a guest judge in one dream, and we had our first lesbian contestant. Okay, time out here. If drag queens are men, why would there be a lesbian contestant? Then she says to the lesbian contestant, "Don't worry about the haters, I used to be a dyke too." Okay, wait, Sam claims to be a gay trans man, so how could she have been a lesbian before she transitioned? What? None of this makes any sense. This is approaching Milo Stewart level contradictory right here. So that was only a sample of this awful, awful comic. There's a lot more of where that came from. My bottom line here is that you can believe whatever you want, even if it's this garbage. But don't push it on other people, especially young, impressionable people. And doctors, actually try to find out if someone's really trans before you give them hormones, because I can't believe that these people are allowed to go on hormones. It's taking me a really long time to try to get in hormones, but at least my endocrinologist would never put people like these on hormones. She's even told me explicitly she never lets anyone who self-identifies as non-binary medically transition, because those people don't need a transition. Also, here's something I never understood. I know that there's sort of a divide among LGBT people. Some are really open about themselves and are activists, and some of them are more private about it. I'm more the latter, but I've never understood why practically all the former are SJWs now. I'm talking about real trans people and gay people, not people who say they're LGBT for attention. Why is being SJW the default for LGBT activism? I don't understand. The only thing I can guess is that these activists are brainwashed with propaganda like this into believing that SJWs are the only ones who support them, when in reality SJWs do much more harm towards LGBT people than good. So I hope you enjoy this video, and like and subscribe if you want more. There are plenty of comics like this out there, and cover all this cancer if you want me to. Well, feel the funk blast!